Welcome back to the Explainer. So, have you ever wondered what actually separates a struggling YouTube channel from, a massive, highly profitable digital empire? Well, today we are deconstructing a super fascinating framework from the Professor of How. It's called the Content Creators Cheat Codes. Basically, it's an 8-module system that promises to take all that social media chaos and turn it into a predictable, highly profitable machine. If you're curious about how the top 1% of creators actually engineer their success, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get into it. All right, we got to start with a staggering number to really set the stage here. 50 million. According to the source material, that is the exact number of videos uploaded to platforms like YouTube and Instagram every single day. Just think about that for a second. 50 million pieces of content fighting for the exact same eyeballs that you want. In this massive, overcrowded ocean of content, pouring 10 hours into editing a video and just hoping for a little luck, well, it's basically like banging your head against a concrete wall and expecting a door to magically open. Without a solid system, your hard work just gets completely buried in the noise. Okay, let's dive into this by contrasting two completely different mindsets. There is this huge prevailing myth for struggling creators, right? The idea that success absolutely requires this wildly expensive 1 lakh rupee 4K camera, flashy RGB lights everywhere, and a lucky viral break. But the reality of this blueprint, it's entirely different. Real, sustainable success relies on what they call retention engineering. It's about treating the algorithm as a servant you command rather than a lottery ticket and relying on tested, proven systems over creative chaos. So, to uncover how this whole system actually works, we're going to break down its 5 core phases. We'll start with foundation and conception, move through execution and delivery, head straight into the business end, and finally, we'll weigh the blueprint's actual cost. All right, starting off with phase 1, foundation and conception. This is where we get into mindset, ideas, and scripting. Now, what's really interesting about this is the creator argues that without a rock-solid foundation right out of the gate, your content is basically dead the moment you hit your first obstacle, like long before you even pick up a camera. First off, you absolutely have to avoid the copycat trap of just mimicking others. It's a fast track to failure for sure. Instead, the blueprint relies on tactics like the ACTI method. This is essentially a psychological trick to find highly viral, relatable angles hidden right there in everyday boring life. Couple that with a strict thumbnail first rule, which means you mentally and visually finalize your packaging before writing a single word of your script, and you start to carve out your own blue ocean. You're basically eliminating your competition entirely just by being completely unique. And that brings us to a huge concept: retention engineering. Think about the very last time you got bored and just swiped away from a video. That exact moment, that's the middle drop-off rate that this entire system is trying to eliminate. It involves using really strategic scripting loops and pattern interrupts to just keep the brain totally locked in. But listen, there is a ruthless 5-second rule here. If you don't capture a viewer's attention in those crucial first 5 seconds with a powerful visual hook and a really strong promise, well, the rest of your brilliant script is literally useless. Moving right along to phase 2, execution. Here, we're unlocking filming and editing secrets. The core argument they make here is super simple, but honestly, it's highly guarded in the industry. A crazy expensive cinematic lens absolutely cannot save a terrible script. The blueprint completely dismantles the gear myth, showing you exactly how to extract maximum quality right from your smartphone so your stuff doesn't look cheap. But here's the real golden rule, and they call it the echo killer. Viewers will totally forgive slightly blurry video quality, but bad, piercing audio, it will instantly destroy your retention. Zero forgiveness there. The system also introduces a 3-point formula for getting studio-like lighting on a total shoestring budget, and it treats editing not just as like cutting clips together, but as pure psychology to control viewer emotions. And finally, they outline AI as an absolutely essential tool if you really want to scale your channel's output. Okay, phase 3. Delivery. This is all about mastering packaging and algorithms. So, once the video is actually made, you have to navigate the kind of mysterious world of social platforms. And the source sums up their entire philosophy with this one incredibly bold statement: the algorithm is not your master, it is your servant. Think about that. If you're constantly blaming the algorithm for your low views, this framework argues that, well, you simply don't know the right commands to give it yet. And this brilliantly illustrates how the system actually commands that algorithm, relying heavily on plain old human psychology. It starts with understanding exactly how our brains respond to specific colors and visual triggers in your packaging. Then they introduce the binge loop. This is all about designing your channel so the end of one video just naturally hooks a viewer right into the next one, basically trapping them in your catalog. It's brilliant. It also treats analytics like a hard science through something called retention graph surgery. It forces creators to literally do a post-mortem on their audience drop-off points to diagnose their mistakes. It's about knowing exactly when to use SEO titles versus viral titles. And it's all tied together by universal first principles that work across YouTube, Instagram, X, you name it. All right, on to phase 4, the business end. These are the money cheat codes. So the crucial point is that creating great videos is really only half the battle. Here, we see a massive shift in focus from just making content for fun to actually building a sustainable business. The source argues that subscribers and views, those are just ego metrics. I mean, sure, they stroke your pride, but they don't actually fill your bank account, right? Real professional creators focus on business metrics. This means fully understanding the harsh mathematical realities of AdSense. It means using very specific pricing strategies for sponsorships that make it literally impossible for brands to negotiate you down. And, maybe most importantly, knowing exactly when and how to make your first smart hire so you can run your channel like a well-oiled factory. And finally, phase 5, the blueprint's cost. Looking at the community versus personal plan. Let's move to and see how this builds, because you're probably wondering, what does it actually cost to bypass years of trial and error? The system is split into 2 tiers based on a creator's ambition level. First, you have the community plan, coming in at an early bird rate of roughly 4,000 rupees. That gets you the core 66 chapters, a certificate, and some group masterclasses. Pretty solid. However, for those wanting a guaranteed fast track, there's the personal plan, which jumps up to around 24,000 rupees. Now, that massive price difference really comes down to one crucial value proposition: one-on-one mentorship. With the premium tier, you're getting personal surgical audits of your specific channel and your specific scripts directly from the host. The creator closes their pitch with a really intense challenge to their audience, totally forcing a perspective shift on the future of the digital economy. They ask, in 2027, will you be begging for 100 views or controlling the internet? Wow, it's a highly provocative thought, and it perfectly highlights the immense pressure, but also the massive potential right within the creator economy today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for this explainer. I really hope it brought you some actionable clarity today. And hey, remember to always keep questioning the systems behind the content you consume. Catch you next time.